When there is an ending, there was a beginning. Every victim has a picture to paint. Every true crime has its time and place. Please join our MJ podcast, the series Deep into the Woods, Missing Persons, Unsolved Crimes, and the Does. Welcome to our MJ podcast, this series, Deep into the Woods, Missing Persons, Unsolved Crimes, and the Does. This is episode 21, part 1, Mass Murder Solved. We are coming to you from our office in Plattsburgh, New York. My name is Mark, and I will be your host for tonight's show. December 31st, 1975, Indiana. 17-year-old female mass murderer. Indiana woman convicted of killing 6 people continues to fight for freedom. In Greenwood, Indiana, Sarah Cindy White is a daughter of an alcoholic mother and sexually abusive father, and the stress lands her in a mental hospital for a year. Charles and Carol Roberson take her in as a nanny for their 4 children, but reopen Cindy's old wounds when they also sexually abuse her. To escape, Cindy burns down the Roberson home on New Year's Eve, 1975, killing the entire family, and is serving 6 concurrent life sentences in an Indiana prison. Indiana longest serving female prison inmate has an attorney working on a new push in a 2-decade-long fight to win White's freedom. Hey, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. Sarah Cindy White killed 4 children who were 4 innocent young souls. The children's names and ages: Michael, 7 years old. Dale, 6 years old. Gary, 5 years old. And Sissy, 4 years old. Let's not forget the children. Ex-FBI profiler Candace DeLong does a case and killer profile about Sarah Cindy White. White was convicted in 1976 on 6 counts of murder in connection with the fiery deaths of the whole Greenwood, Indiana family, the Roberson family. The Roberson family that took Sarah Cindy White in as an orphan teen. Charles Asher, White's attorney, has worked unsuccessfully to win her release since the 1990s. Asher said he thinks it's time to free the woman who has spent 45 years behind bars, which has been her entire adult life. Asher went on to say, "You have to acknowledge the horror of 6 lives being lost, including those of 4 children. But at the same time, I've never seen a person with such a sad life or sad treatment in the legal system." At some point, we have to ask ourselves, are we really protecting society when we punish abused teenagers by putting them in prison and throwing away the key? I believe it depends on the case and the circumstances of the case. You must remember that most youth murderers given a light sentence have a high rate of becoming a serial killer. Even though female serial killers are rare, 17-year-old Sarah Cindy White, if let out, could have easily become a serial killer. In the case of mass murderer Sarah Cindy White, she got the sentence she deserved. Sarah Cindy White is serving 6 life sentences in the death of Charles and Carol Roberson and their 4 children. All 6 members of the Roberson family perished in a fire set by 17-year-old Sarah Cindy White on New Year's Eve of 1975. Sarah Cindy White is among Indiana's most notorious, prolific killers based on convictions. The former FBI profiler Candace DeLong met with White in prison last July and agrees with Asher that it is time for White to be released from prison. The former FBI profiler and homicide expert called Sarah Cindy White the 5th innocent child victim in the horrific case. Sarah Cindy White has never denied killing the Roberson family. But even White's own attorney didn't know the depths of this story. How can anyone feel compassion for a person who kills 6 people and 4 being children? People and her attorney needs to realize that Sarah Cindy White was just pure evil at 17 years old. White has made allegations that she had been abused as a child by her father and later by the Robersons. White made these heavy allegations of sexual abuse years after her 1976 convictions. In the criminal justice system, this has become an issue, claiming abuse after the fact of being convicted. The 17-year-old Sarah Cindy White first denied any role in the fatal blaze. Then White admits that she set the fire and is responsible for the deaths of the 6 Roberson family members. White has insisted she never intended for anyone to die. The 17-year-old White hoped the fire would provide her an opportunity to escape the couple she claimed sexually abused her. In 1987, a clemency hearing, White first admitted to starting the fire and stating no one was supposed to have died that night. No one. The fire got out of hand. Let's take a pause for the cause, and we'll be back in a moment. MJA would like to give a special shout out to the Corbin Connection comedy channel on YouTube. Mr. Corbin is a very funny man with his 3 alter egos. Once again, that's the Corbin Connection on the comedy channel on YouTube. Check it out. Thank you.
All my friends are heathen, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. Please don't make any sudden moves. You don't know the half of the abuse. Welcome to the rooms of people who have rooms for people that they love one day docked away. Just because you check the guns at the door doesn't mean the brains will change from hand to grenade. You'll never know a psychopath sitting next to you. You'll never know a murderer sitting next to you. You'll think how we get here sitting next to you. But after all I've said, please don't forget. All my friends are heathen, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. Please don't make any sudden moves. You don't know the half of the abuse. We don't deal that size very well. They say newcomers have a certain smell. You've trust issue not to mention. They say they can smell your intention. You'll never know a freak show sitting next to you. You'll have some weird people sitting next to you. You'll think how we get here sitting next to you. But after all I've said, please don't forget. Why you come? You knew you should have stayed. I tried to warn you just to stay away. And now they're outside ready to bust. It looks like you might be one of us.
When there is an ending, there was a beginning. Every victim has a picture to paint. Every true crime has its time and place. Please join our MJ podcast, the series Deep into the Woods, Missing Persons, Unsolved Crimes, and the Does. Welcome back to our MJ podcast, the series Deep into the Woods, Missing Persons, Unsolved Crimes, and the Does. This is episode 21, part 1. Mass Murder Solved. At White's trial in Johnson County, Indiana, she was painted as a jilted lover out for revenge against 45-year-old Roberson and his 41-year-old wife. Prosecutors used letters and nude photographs of White found in Roberson's wallet to build their case against her. The allegations White had been sexually abused by her father and the Roberson did not come out at trial, and that she was too embarrassed and ashamed to admit the abuse at the time. Sarah Cindy White moved in with the Robersons to work as a live-in babysitter after she was released from a 10-month stay at an Indianapolis mental hospital in the fall of 1975. White was happy when Charles Roberson showed an interest in her and began flirting with her. The 17-year-old White was taken back with the disturbing behavior by her new father figure. It included forcing White to watch pornographic movies and engage in sex acts in front of other men. 41-year-old Carol Roberson was aware of the activity and an active participant in some of the sexual abuse. When White tried to leave in the winter of 1975, Charles Roberson locked her in her bedroom. Soon Charles Roberson returned with a kitten and ripped off its head, saying she would face the same fate if she did not obey him. Sarah Cindy White thought if she could start a fire and they made the place unlivable, she could go away and forget all about the abuse. White's plan went awry almost immediately after she lit the fire near the family's Christmas tree on New Year's Eve 1975. The Christmas tree lit up too fast. The 17-year-old White claims she went into the Robersons' bedroom to alert them to the fire. Then she tried to help Carol Roberson get the children out of the bedroom window before she passed out. The next thing White remembered was waking up on the ground outside the burning home. Sarah Cindy White was hysterical and neighbors had to restrain her from trying to get back into the fire. White was treated at the hospital for severe burns to her arms. The Indiana Court of Appeals opinion upholding the convictions based on a phone call White made inquiring about a fire. It was less than 4 hours after Sarah Cindy White, the defendant, had inquired about the fire that the Roberson home was in flames. The arson investigator stated unequivocally that the Roberson fire was not accidental. Sarah Cindy White clemency pleas unsuccessful. Nearly a dozen previous efforts to win White's release have been unsuccessful, said her attorney, Asher. In a 1999 ruling, the Indiana Court of Appeals noted, at the time of White's convictions, inmates serving life sentences were not intended by the legislature to be included in those classes of inmates who could become eligible for parole. That means a clemency proceeding is the only alternative. A spokesman for the Indiana Department of Corrections said White has been in prison longer than any other current female inmate in Indiana. White has been more than just a model prisoner. The agent White has had 2 strokes and spends much of her time in a wheelchair. White, over the past several years, is the most peaceful person and has experienced amazing personal growth in prison. White's attorney Asher claims at the time of the fire, White had been a victim of sexual abuse for a decade and recently had been released from a hospital. White was in the hospital for 10 months for conditions which stem from her emotional trauma. Asher White's attorney said that experience stunned her emotionally and affected her judgment and decision making. Asher went on to say that White survived by denial and by keeping her mouth shut. The 17-year-old White had learned what virtually all victims of extreme child abuse learn. Don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. Asher said he does not think White received an appropriate treatment at the hospital where sexual abuse was never addressed. There is a lot of things that we know now that we didn't know yesterday. The psychological care of a killer would have been different, and the defense would have been greatly different. Indiana officials need to reevaluate how the state deals with troubled youths who commit murders. In many cases, the child has been abused, and simply locking them away for life may not be the only or the best solution. Sarah Cindy White was convicted in 1976 on 6 counts of murder in the connection with the fiery deaths of a Greenwood, Indiana family, the Roberson family, that took White in as an orphan teen. That's gratitude for you. I have a quote for our listeners. Optimism is faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. Helen Keller. Always remember, folks, if you ever get bored with nothing to do, well, take a walk deep into the woods. You might be surprised at what you might find. A special thanks goes out to our listeners for tuning in, for you all are so kind. That's the end of our MJ podcast. This series, Deep into the Woods. This has been episode 21, part 1. Mass Murder Solved. My name is Mark, and I was your host for tonight's show. I say to you all, good night from Plattsburgh, New York.
When you walk through the garden, gotta watch your back. Well, I beg your pardon. Walk the straight and narrow track. If you walk with Jesus, He's gonna save your soul. You gotta keep a devil way down in a walk through the garden, watch your back. Well, I beg your pardon. Walk the straight and narrow track. If you walk with Jesus, save your soul. Gotta keep the devil down in the hole. He's got fire and the fury at his command. Well, he don't got to